A former Trump administration official has made some pretty wild and salacious claims about the 45th president and his administration in a new book. The official, Miles Taylor, who is a former chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security, who resigned and had written the 2018 op-ed in the New York Times titled, "I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration." Well, that didn't go well, did it? Now, he claims that Trump had been heard talking about Ivanka Trump, his daughter, in some pretty explicit, gross ways. We're talking
sexual anarchy.
Okay. So, first, content warning. All right. He writes, aides said he talked about Ivanka Trump's breasts, backside, and what it might be like to have sex with her. Oof. So, yeah, about that weather. Yeah, that weather coming in from Canada, the smoke. Oh, my God. Okay. So, now look, this was in context of Taylor highlighting the almost daily instances of sexism in the Trump White House and saying that they were so bad that one senior female official told the writer, quote, "This is not a healthy workplace for women." So now, if anything's true, it's that it's not a good place for women to work. Sure. 100%. Now, Taylor also claimed that after that interaction, former Chief of Staff John Kelly had to remind the president that Ivanka was his daughter. Now, afterwards, Kelly retold the story to me in, quote, visible disgust. Trump, he said, was a very, very evil man. Okay. So, I'm going to be honest. I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if I take this guy 100% at his word. I don't know if he's trying to cash in. He did work for Donald Trump, and like a lot of former Donald Trump officials, they go out and they write books, and a lot of them are filled with very salacious information, salacious claims, and so, you know, it sells books and things like that. And I say that because I think most people who worked for Donald Trump did so because obviously they want to elevate their careers, okay? And so, you know, they follow him on the campaign trail. They're like, oh, don't worry, I work for Donald Trump. Not a problem. I'll get ahead in, you know, Republican politics. This is a great opportunity for my career and all that stuff. And, you know, I could write books afterwards of my experience. And this guy, you know, he's full of bombast and, you know, he says things that are pretty a little yikesy, but I'm sure he doesn't mean it, you know. And then, of course, they get into office and they realize he's insane. And then, you know, they're like,
whoopsie,
I made a big mistake. I made a big mistake working for this guy. And so, you know, some of them end up resigning, leaving their positions, especially after things like January 6th. But okay, I still don't know if this is true. I still don't know if this is an example of him trying to cash in after this. I don't know. But what I do know is that Donald Trump has said some pretty effed up things about his daughter. And I'm going to give you some examples. Back in 2003, when Ivanka was 22, Trump had appeared on the Howard Stern show. So this is Howard Stern spent on it a couple of times and said some pretty effed up things. One of them, he said during that appearance, my daughter Ivanka, she's 6 feet tall. She's got the best body. Weird thing to say about your daughter. The following year in a New York Magazine interview, Trump said, Ivanka's a great beauty. Every guy in the country wants to go out with my daughter, but she's got a boyfriend. Okay. Back on the Howard Stern show, he agreed that his daughter was a quote-unquote piece of ass. So now it gets worse. 2 years later, while promoting their series on The Apprentice, Donald Ivanka appeared on The View, where he was asked how he would have felt if Ivanka had posed in Playboy when she was modeling. Quote, "It would be really disappointing. Not really, but it would depend on what's inside the magazine." Well, I mean, it'd be disappointing. Oh, and then he, you know, in the middle of that was like, oh, wait a minute. No, it would depend. No. He then said, I don't think Ivanka would do that, although she does have a very nice figure. I've said if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. Isn't that terrible? How terrible? Is that terrible? Yeah, yes, it's terrible. It's terrible. But please don't do that. Please don't say things like that. That's weird. So yeah, of course he said super weird stuff about his daughter. Who says that? Who says, "Oh, if she wasn't my daughter, I'd totally get with her." Weird, weird, weird. Now that makes this way more believable. I wish I could 100% say, "Oh, come on, that's too far. I don't think Donald Trump would actually do that." But I can't. I can't say that. I can't. Uh, wish I could. Wish I could. But now look, Taylor said more about sexism in the administration, and so look, the weirdo Ivanka stuff aside, was misogyny a big problem in the Trump White House? Totally. In fact, here's what Taylor said, quote, "There are still quite a few female leaders from the Trump administration who have held their tongues about the unequal treatment they face in the administration at best, and the absolute naked sexism they experienced with the hands of Donald Trump at worst." With the hands of Donald Trump, not at the hands of Donald Trump. That's interesting phrasing. Now, one of the examples he used, and I talked about it earlier, was former Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, who Trump would allegedly call sweetie and honey all the time. So, look, I can believe that totally happened. That's a pretty old school thing. It's something that a lot of older men, at least in my experience, I've seen that happen a lot. And I honestly don't think a lot of them are meaning anything bad by it. Like, they don't know that it's infantilizing and kind of offensive and weird. They don't know. I think a lot of women at the time didn't want to tell them, certainly. Didn't want to say anything, or might have been so used to this kind of treatment that it might not have actually bothered them, because you don't really think about it. I don't know, but I do know that it's super unprofessional and creepy to say things like that to people that you're working with, especially people that are working under you. You have a power imbalance like that. And so don't do that at work. Don't do that to people you don't know, obviously, or to people you do know. Unless, that's your wife or your girlfriend or whatever. Don't do it to servers, waitresses, whatever, because I've seen that happen a lot. And I've heard a lot of stories of, just random, I'm sorry, it generally tends to be old dudes, saying weirdo stuff and hitting on, younger women in the service industry. It's so uncool. It's unprofessional. It's creepy. Okay. And wrong. So now Nielsen also alleged that Trump had criticized her makeup. I'm sorry. Taylor had alleged that Trump had criticized Nielsen's makeup. Once again, super unprofessional. Again, at one point, Nielsen whispered to him, "Trust me, this is not a healthy workplace for women." Okay. So, Taylor also claimed that senior counselor Kellyanne Conway had called Trump a misogynistic bully, a comment that she denied making when contacted by Newsweek. So that's important context to note. Quote, "He's a pervert. He's difficult to deal with." This is Taylor talking to Newsweek, saying, "This is still the same man. Incredibly, we're considering electing him to the presidency again." Do you think that Donald Trump would change? Why would he? There's no incentive for him to change. And he added that he's setting a very vile tone within the Republican Party, and in a sense has normalized pretty derisive views towards women in general. Okay, so look, there's no lies there as far as having a derisive view towards women. Of course, you only need to go through, some of his his old tweets, for example, which are now probably still up on Twitter. He might not be tweeting, but he's got his account reinstated thanks to Elon Musk. And so, yeah, you just have to go through anytime he's talking about a woman. He's rated their physical appearance when they would criticize him, famously telling those who accuse him of sexual assault as not being his type. Yeah. Would constantly refer to women as crazy, weak, overrated, unfit, having bad judgment, having no strength and stamina. His tweets also mentioned cases of women going to his office, begging him for a job, tears in their eyes, begging for campaign contributions, not so long ago, and quote, do anything for them. Of course, in totally submissive positions. He's talked about Megyn Kelly bleeding from her eyes and her wherever. He's also accused so many women of being liars, as if, that's a trait shared by most women. Well, I mean, if you're, an incel or an MRA, then yeah, you would think that most women are liars, but they're not. And so, obviously, Trump calls a lot of people a lot of different names. But he seems to be specifically vicious when he criticizes women. And then focuses again on how weak and dependent they are, how unfit they are for any sort of leadership roles and positions, and essentially boils their work down to how physically attractive they are. So, that's Trump. That's Trump in a nutshell. And so do I think that there is a misogynistic atmosphere in the White House? Yeah, of course there was. And so out of everything, that is 100% true and provable. As for the idea that he actually fantasized about having sex with his daughter, I don't know. I can't say that for certain. And the fact that this is even an open question in my mind is disturbing enough. But again, this is all because of stuff that he's been caught on tape, openly saying, stuff about Ivanka. Again, I hope this isn't true. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if this conversation actually did happen.